Hello and welcome back to my weekly show where I talk about the ups and downs and in-betweens of selling on eBay. Today we've got a ton of stuff to talk about. It's been a while since I've done one of these weekly videos, so I've got a lot to cover. One thing we're going to talk about are garage sales. Garage sales are back in my area. I went to my first series of garage sales this past weekend and found quite a few good things, so we'll talk through some of that stuff. I'll also be going through my numbers for March. We'll do a kind of a March review of how my sales were, just because, again, it's been a while since I've done a weekly video, so we'll see how March did, and then I'll go through my numbers for this past week as well. And then, of course, we'll discuss these tariffs and what the impact might be for you as an eBay seller. So let's dig into that first. So yeah, it looks like we're in a trade war with China. Goody. That's exciting. Sounds great, right? But what does it mean for you? How is this trade war going to impact you as an eBay seller? First, it's likely to affect pricing and sourcing and buyer behavior in some way. I don't know. I'm not an economist. I once sold an air fryer to someone in Denmark. Like, that's the extent of my global trade expertise. If you're looking for like really great answers here, I'm not your guy. I'm going to tell you how I think it's going to impact the secondhand market and for eBay sellers in particular, but I'm not an expert. So if you buy secondhand goods, though, especially from places like garage sales and thrift stores, that's kind of going to be my focus of how, like, talking through what I think the impact is going to be is for folks that buy secondhand from estate sales, garage sales, thrift stores, and what that means. So first off, tariffs increase the cost of importing goods for retailers. So categories like tools and small appliances and clothing are going to be affected by these huge increase in tariffs. But there are some high profile categories like mobile phones and computers that have already been exempted. And that exemption came super fast. Like, it's a good reminder that this situation is still shifting. And by the time I publish this video, it could be different, So again, take this with a grain of salt. You're going to need to do your own research. My point of all of that is this stuff is just shifting extremely quickly. You should not assume that every single category is going to be affected. Like I said, mobile phones, computers are already not affected. So watch the categories that you sell in particular. If you sell used tools or home goods or clothing, rising retail prices could make those items more attractive on the secondhand market. And so you want to pay attention to your pricing. You want to adjust that pricing when it makes sense, because the cost of new goods goes up, it's likely that the market prices for used goods is also going to go up. So you'll want to pay attention to pricing and adjust your pricing when it makes sense. And don't overdo it. This is not about gouging, but it's about following the market, following the shifts in the market, and watching when those new prices, if those new prices go up, watching if and when they do, and then adjusting used prices to follow. That's what you want to be paying attention to as these tariffs start to roll out and we start to feel their impact. The next thing is really, if retailers reduce their Chinese imports, which could happen, then there's certain like sourcing mechanisms that might change, like liquidation channels might shrink. So that's things like shelf pulls or store returns or overstock from tariff affected categories. These changes won't be sudden, but it could change over time. And so if you rely on retail-based sourcing, if you're going to Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, and buying things like shelf pulls and returns, things like that, that you may be impacted there. Because if retailers are buying less from China, there's going to be less inventory at these retail stores, or they might be more particular with what they do with their overstock or their returns. They may not just be looking to get rid of it as quickly and cheaply as possible, where this reseller comes in and buys and sells them on the secondhand market. They might come up with other ways to make income from those shelf pulls or overstock, for example. So again, I'm just guessing here, but if I was sourcing solely from retail environments, I would probably be a little bit more worried. So if you're one of those people, I would consider expanding to garage sales, estate sales, other sourcing methods that don't rely on retail stores. I would also just pay attention to what kinds of items become harder to find in bulk. And if you're relying on those types of things for your reselling business, just pay attention. Pay attention to how retailers retailers are reacting to the tariffs and how they're adjusting their own buying behavior. The other thing to think about is if people stop buying new, they're more likely to fix what they already have. And so this is going to increase demand for parts, accessories, discontinued items, things like that, which is really good for us, for resellers. Y'all have heard me talk about this on the channel before, where there's just a big category of items, mostly in electronics or home goods, kitchen stuff like that you can buy and just part out into separate pieces. And so, if the cost of new items goes up, you'll probably see an increase in demand for parts because people are looking to, fix what they have instead of just throw it away and buy one new. And so I think that's a good thing overall, just across the board. It's a good thing for the planet. It's a good thing for your reselling business if you're selling parts for items. So, what you want to do here, and how you can take advantage of this is don't skip on broken or incomplete items that you find out there when you're sourcing. You still want to check demand and sell-through rate. You don't want to buy broken items that are not in demand. But, think about buying more things that can be parted out because there's a lot of money that can be made from that, those parts parted out, generally speaking. But I think that will increase in the environment where tariffs are sort of skyrocketing. So the next thing is this de minimis rule. Let's talk about that. Right now, the imported goods that are under $800 can enter the U.S. duty-free without full customs processing. And that's a rule called de minimis. And this is basically how platforms like Temu and AliExpress, they send ultra cheap items directly to U.S. buyers under this de minimis rule, and they could just do it very cheaply. And this is also how you see sort of ultra cheap items like phone chargers and phone cases and things like that on eBay being shipped directly from China. eBay can be littered with that type of thing. And so if this de minimis rule gets rolled back, and it sounds like it probably will in May, it could really shake up a huge part of that low cost online market on eBay and outside of eBay. And how that could impact us US based sellers is we could see less competition from these ultra cheap imports, like those $3, $10 items could get more expensive or slower to arrive from China. And so that makes secondhand options that are US based more appealing to buyers. And if buyers aren't flooded with like $2 socks or $5 headphones, used versions will have more room to sell, or even new versions. If you have those things new, you'll have less competition. Margins could also improve in categories where you've had like a race to the bottom. You could have improved visibility and trust for domestic US based listings. And sometimes I do that in certain items when I list, is if a lot of the competition is shipping from China, I'll put in my title, ships from US, because that is an appealing thing for some buyers. They want something that's going to arrive quickly. And, when you're getting something shipped from China, even, pre-tariff war, it's sort of a crapshoot how long it's going to take. So being a US-based seller, this stuff definitely has its merits. I think you'll also see fewer junk listings sort of crowding the page on eBay. You can look now, if you just go search for like phone case, there's incredible the amount of junk listings direct from China that you'll see. And I think we'll see less of those if this de minimis rule gets rolled back. So another thing to talk through here is when there's economic uncertainty or price hikes, like generally buyer behaviors shift. And so even if these tariffs are reversed, the environment changes for how people shop. And, we haven't even talked about a potential recession, for example. All of these things are going to impact buyer behaviors, and that's going to have an impact on your business. It's interesting. If you look back in history, though, eBay has done generally well during US-based recessions. Their business has still been impacted, and sellers on eBay have still been impacted during these times, but the impact felt has been less than other retailers. And I think that's just because of the nature of how eBay operates and the types of inventory that sellers provide eBay, just is more attractive to people in a recession, because some buyers move from new and cheap to like used and good enough, for example, and probably should expect general buyer behaviors to shift. And that is likely going to have some impact on our business. How much impact and exactly what that impact is, it's hard to say, but we're, in terms of just other retailers, people like us who are dealing a lot in used goods or secondhand goods or cheaper because we get them cheaper and we can offer them cheaper, are generally going to fare better than retailers who are just selling things at MSRP, for example. So it's also just like it's a reminder that none of this is going to happen overnight. For example, retailers already just have a stock in the pipeline that are not impacted by the tariffs. Price increases and supply gaps just take a long time to show up in the market, especially in the resale market. Some of these tariffs, you've been seeing the news. It's just, they're shifting every hour, every day. So some of these tariffs may be removed completely, or more exemptions like the phone and computers will be introduced. So you really should not try to time the market here. Don't try to look into the future. You want to make small adjustments. That's the most important thing to do here. Don't try to time the market. Make small adjustments. Use your own sales data, not just headlines, to make decisions, and just don't try to get ahead of it. I think you'll end up wasting time and money if you do. I think the one thing that I would consider actually getting ahead on is your own supplies as a reseller, because tariffs may affect shipping and storage supplies as well. So a lot of the stuff that we buy to operate our own business comes from China, and so if you have the space and cash, you may consider stocking up on things like poly mailers, thermal labels, packing tape, bubble wrap, void fill, plastic sleeves, bags, storage bins, organizers. If you're already planning on buying those types of things, or you need to buy those things, regularly over the course of the year so that your business continues to operate, I would consider investing maybe in more of those right now before they potentially get more expensive. I'm especially worried about Q4, for example. We're likely not going to feel the impact of these tariffs right away, like I said. But if they stick and if they hold and if there's other economic uncertainty, it could be that bubble wrap, for example, is just way more expensive in Q4 than it is right now. And so if you have the money and the space, I would consider sort of stockpiling some of that stuff right now so that you're not caught flat-footed in the really busy times for resale, like in Q4. So again, it's hard for me to give you advice to definitely do that. Money matters, space matters. You may not have either of those to make the investment, but if you can, I would consider doing that just in case. You'll still use it regardless, even if the tariffs are canceled and prices stay the same. You'll still use that stuff. You're not going to waste it, but if the prices do rise, you could save a lot of money by getting that stuff right now. So just to wrap all this up, tariffs and exemptions change super fast. That's exactly why it's hard to build a long-term strategy around this stuff. If you sell secondhand, though, you're probably in a better spot than most. Just keep your business light, keep it flexible, be responsive, make decisions based on what's actually happening, not what might happen. Watch really closely, stay adaptable. Let the results guide your next steps, not the news headlines. And by the way, I'm not looking to host any sort of political arguments here in the comments. So if you leave that stuff, I'm going to delete it. But just generally good, general good business advice. The same things I preach on all my videos apply to this situation as well. But hopefully this is helpful. So like I said, I did go to some garage sales, the first garage sales of the year this past weekend. Let's take a look at some of this stuff that I bought this past weekend. So first up is this Panasonic FM27 boombox. It's actually in really good shape. This was at a garage sale. I paid $5 for it. And some of the things you want to check before you buy this is make sure that the antenna extends all the way and it doesn't fall. And this one's a really strong antenna. Make sure the battery compartment is clean. This one has a clean battery compartment and it has the cord with it. So I haven't tested it yet, but even for parts, it's going to go for 30 to 40 around there. And if it works, it's going to be between $75 and $100 on this one. So we'll test that and see how it goes. Got some nice boots here. Picked these up for 15 Vask, I think is how you pronounce the brand. These have not been worn, so they're brand new. But even if I didn't recognize this brand, there's two things that gave this away as being a pretty good pickup. The first thing is it's Gore-Tex, so you can see a Gore-Tex brand right there. And so that's just going to keep water out. But that's a brand that has to be licensed, and so that just means it's a more expensive boot. And then on the sole, you'll see a Vibram sole, so that's that yellow brand there. As Vibram's making the sole, that usually means it's a decent boot. This one, they're 10.5, and they're going to go for probably between 100 and 150 in this condition, which I'll probably sell them new without box. These obviously have not been worn. I paid 15 for them. A couple other random pickups here. Some YSL handkerchiefs here. Packs of 3 for $1 each. These are going to go for about 25 all in each. These are some spoons, like some salad spoons and forks, I guess. These are actually from Anthropologie. I don't know if you can see the A down there, but these will probably sell for 25 bucks each. I paid $1 for them. I also picked up a Moana Blu-ray DVD. It was only $1. This thing probably will sell for 15. Nothing great. This one's interesting. This Nintendo family computer here. Look at this. I paid 50 cents for it, which that like threw me off. I was like, well, it's probably not worth anything. But the comps are actually all over the place. I need to do a bit more research. I think it's going to be worth at least 30, but it also seems to be comping out sometimes in the $100 range. So I'm not quite sure why there's such a variety of prices on this guy. Need to do some research, but definitely a good pickup at 50 cents. It's brand new inside there. Also got a Hanes pocket tee here. This thing's from 1997. I love picking up vintage shirts like this, or obviously vintage underwear I like picking up as well. These were $2. This will sell for about 20, so nothing amazing, but these will go pretty quick. People like to get the vintage shirts like this new in the package. This is a funny one. This was at a garage sale this morning. Obviously, Bose is a great brand to look out for. This is just a Bluetooth speaker. $1 they wanted for this. That's why I don't get at garage sales. They were selling like packs of socks, like soccer socks, single pair packs of soccer socks for $5, but they were only selling this Bose for $1. So this thing will comp out in the $50 to $60 range, assuming it works. So it should work. These things hold up pretty well. This is a great brand to look out for. Tecovas, I believe is how you pronounce it. These are... It's like a Western wear leather brand. And when I first saw the box, I thought it was $50. But if you look on here, it actually is only $5. They're calling them slippers. I don't think they're exactly slippers. They're more like slip-ons. But this is just a really good find. I'll show you here. Not my style, but a very nice slip-on leather shoe. And for $5, they're probably going to get about $100 for this. I haven't checked comps on it, but that's my guess, is right around $100. This also just smells amazing. It smells like a baseball glove. It's just a really great leather smell to it. So really amazing pickup for $5 at a garage sale. What else? This is a Lulu little bag here. This is one of the newer styles. I paid up a little bit. It was $7. I haven't comped it. My guess is it's going to be $20 to $30. It is one of the new styles though, so I think it'll go pretty quick. Also got an older KitchenAid coffee maker here. You'll see it's kind of like a mini coffee maker. This one stood out to me just because I could tell it's old. I can tell it's vintage. A little bit of cleaning to do. I'll do some quick testing on it, but this should get about $40 or $50. I paid $5. This is an example of something that I just I don't recommend everyone pick up. It's a category that I personally like to sell. It's kind of a pain in the butt if you have to clean them. It doesn't ship super easily. It's not terrible, but and my margins aren't going to be super great. But I don't know. I just like buying this sort of like vintage 90s kitchen gear, especially coffee related. So it's just one that I like to pick up. Then we've got this. This is from Tomy from 2009. This is like a little Mossburger, which Mossburger is like the Japanese version of McDonald's. So this is like a play set of some sort. The comps on this are super weird. If you check, there's like really none sold, but there's not a ton listed. There's several listed in like, 50, 60, and then all the way up like in the $300 range. So I'm not quite sure what's going on with the comps. This is definitely not worth $300. I maybe will get, I'm guessing, between 20 and 40, but it was only $1. Just got to make sure the pieces are there. I might part it out. I don't know. We'll see. I also picked up this Whispering Waters Drip or Miss. This thing had no comps, no active or sold comps, but this is just the type of thing I know will sell. This thing is made in the USA. It's just a unique kind of piece for a bird bath there. Somebody will want this, probably for, I'm going to guess, $30 to $50. I paid $2 for it. And I got this Limax Christmas piece here. Actually, is it Christmas? I don't know if it's Christmas. Yeah, it is Christmas. Paid $5 for it. This thing probably will go for about $100. I always look Limax stuff up. It's hard to tell whether they're going to be worth it all the time. I need to make sure that it works. I think this thing is a battery powered. Yeah, it is battery powered. So we'll make sure it works. It looks like it's in pretty good condition. I didn't see any obvious things broken, so we'll see. But yeah, if this thing's good to go, it should be $100 pretty easily. And finally, I got a bunch of Legos. So this was at the first garage sale this morning. A lot of stuff put together, and then a lot of just loose Legos here. There are some pieces that are completely put together like this. So I'll probably go through this and see if there's any particular pieces that I think might be worth selling separately. I might take the minifigs out and see if there's anything worth selling separately or glotting together like that. Like, I don't know, this looks like an Iron Man piece. No idea what's in here. I paid $10 for the whole thing. It's probably like 10 pounds worth of Legos there for $10, so definitely a good deal. I'll be interested to see what is actually inside there. It'll be fun to go through and see, but overall a really good day of garage sales for the first garage sales day of the season. So glad to have them back. It's my favorite way to source and found some pretty good stuff. All right, let's jump into my numbers now. We're going to start with March and take a look at how March did, because it's been a while since I've reviewed my numbers, and I just want to take a look and see how they look for last month and show you how they look. Looks like last month in March, I had a gross sale amount of $4,561 and a net sales of $2,191, which is actually really good. I'm really proud of those numbers because look right here. Look at that. It's just a huge flat line of nothing for a good week and a half. And that's because I was on vacation. I went to London with my family and put the store on vacation mode. And you have the option when you're on vacation mode to allow sales or to not allow sales. Personally, I usually just don't allow sales. When I'm on vacation, I don't want to think about work in any way whatsoever. And while you have vacation mode on and you're allowing sales, people are still asking you questions. People are buying stuff and not realizing that it's not going to ship for a week and a half and asking you to cancel and all that stuff. And I just, you may be okay with that, and so you should allow sales if you want to. Personally, I just don't do it. It's just my personal choice there. But even with that long line of no sales at all, still $2,100 net sales for the month, I'm really happy with. Looks like I had an average gross per sale of $49.58 for the month of March, and an average net per sale of $23.81, and my net profit margin for the month was 48%. Just looking down here, looks like I spent over $600 on new inventory in March. The cost of goods that sold in March was $413, $585 on marketplace fees, and almost $700 in shipping label costs. I did get 93 new listings live, which again, not bad considering all that time. Even before, you can see before my vacation, I was not listing, and even for a few days after I was not listing. I had a really rough time coming back home from London. We got caught in the Heathrow power outage the day we were supposed to leave. Heathrow closed entirely, and we had to spend a few extra days in London. So it was just, could have been a lot worse, but getting home was quite the challenge, but we made it. Looks like my average time to list for the month of March was 4 days, and my average time to sell was 7 months. That's surprising. So a lot of old stuff going out in March. So let's take a look at the most recent week here. The last 7 days I had a gross sale amount of $1,484 and a net sales of $925. That's a $57 average gross and a $35 average net and a 62% net profit margin. Come on down here. It looks like I spent $129 on new inventory. That's all probably garage sale stuff. Let me see here. Yeah, mostly garage sale stuff. I am listing from a bulk buy that I made recently. I'll tell you more about that. But most stuff coming from garage sales. Ooh, and a church sale. That's going to be a fun one to talk through. It was a good, weird church sale. Anyway, cost of goods sold was $143, and marketplace fees were $213, and shipping labels just over $200. 26 new listings and 26 sales, 1-to-1 exactly. So I didn't quite hit my mark this week. I was pretty busy making videos and doing other things, but I did get 26 items listed. I need to really bump it up. I've got so much inventory right now, y'all. It's crazy. I'll show you here in a minute. Average time to list was 1 day, and my average time to sell was 6 months over the past 7 days. So I don't think I'm going to go through my top 10 sales just because it's been a long time since I've shown any inventory that I've sold. I'm going to cherry pick some stuff that I think is interesting, both because it's valuable or it's just interesting. It has an interesting story, or maybe something that you may not have thought to look for when you're outsourcing. So I'm just going to walk through a bunch of different stuff here. Let's take a look first at this SteelPix plated steel picks. So SteelPix is the brand, and these are plated steel picks. So these are used in like floral arrangements, and I got them at a church sale, and it was the weirdest church sale I've ever been to because the church was being closed and going to be leveled. It was just like they said anything in the entire place is going. They're going to tear it down and build a neighborhood or something. And it was just the weirdest place to go sourcing. It was so creepy to be walking around this old church. And basically they said, you can take anything you see, you can take. It was being run by an estate sale company. And so I got a bunch of weird stuff. This is one of the weird things that I got. I was just really shocked at the value of this. This is a very small box, and it sold very quickly, 3 days for $36.98. It went to the UK. And after I had looked this up and found these, I then scoured the entire church for more of them because there was a lot of rooms that were dedicated to like floral arrangements in this church. And so I kept looking for more of these boxes of steel picks, but this is the only one I could find. Anyway, the net return for number 10 here is $23.59. Seeing made in the USA is what gave it away for me. And it's just a weird thing, and things like this, made in the USA have a very specific purpose. you're not really going to find these things like in stores. And so that's why people are coming to eBay to look for them. And in fact, people coming from the UK to look for them and paying a lot of money to have them shipped from the US. So happy to get them out the door. All right, coming in at number 9 here, these Ken Kovac 1964 convertible Ford Mustang pedal cars. This is interesting. I had these for a long time. Let's see, purchase date, May 19th, 2023. I bought 4 of them for $1 each at a garage sale, which was sort of crazy. They had a terrible sell-through rate though. And it was this situation where I saw them there and I was like, ooh, those are probably good. And I looked them up. I'm like, well, they're not good. But they were $1 a piece. And I was like, I feel like I can't just I have to take them. So I took them. And it took forever to sell. But somebody bought all 4 of them at the same time. Again, I paid $1 a piece, and the net return on all 4 of them was $145.16. So it's just a good example of like waiting for the right buyer. So even if there's no history of sales on eBay, and I think that was the case here, there was a couple listed and there was no history of sales on there. But again, they were so cheap for me to get, and I have a good amount of storage space. I was just like, you know what, I'm going to go for it. Almost everything sells on eBay eventually. It might take a long time. So if you have a good storage setup, you're in a good spot because you can pick up things that have a lower sell-through rate that are going to take longer to sell, but you're still going to make good money on them. And these I made almost $150 off of these Mustang pedal cars. Coming in at number 7 here. Is that right? 7 or 8? All right, coming in at number 8 here are these Clé de Peau sample lot. So where did we get these? I forget. Oh, these came from Savers, interestingly. So this is like a cosmetics brand, and it was just a big bag of them. And what did we pay? Not much. Yeah, $7. But apparently it's a very nice brand. I don't remember. My wife bought these and listed these. But these, just cosmetics can do really well. These are just like various lotions and things like that. We had them listed pretty high, $120 for a while, and we ended up taking a best offer of $85. That's $75 plus $9.99 in shipping. So I think these can often be overlooked by resellers, especially I see a lot of these things like at estate sales, for example, and usually like it's just this like name that I've never seen before and can't barely pronounce, but I'll look them up and say, oh man, these actually have some value. That's exactly what happened here. We could have sold them separately, but we just sort of wanted to get them out the door via one listing and one sale. And, it did take a year, but we still made, what did we make? $53.13 for the 8th best flip. Not of the week, but whatever I'm doing here, it's number 8 on that list. Coming in at number 7 here is this Lego guy. You saw this in my garage sale video. So I bought like I don't know how many pound bag of Legos for $10. And I just knew that there was going to be valuable stuff in there. And I just randomly picked this guy out and saw that he was going for about $30. And look at that, within 2 hours. I did underprice it. There was a couple other competing listings that were priced a little bit higher. So I undercut them and got it out the door at $29.99. But just one minifig already has paid for that entire bag of Legos. I still need to go through that bag. I think there's some other good stuff in there as well. But yeah, this is one of the finds from that garage sale this past week. The net return on this one was $20.94. Coming in at number 6 here is this vintage unbranded cast iron. Y'all who have watched the channel for some time remember, I can't remember what video it was. I think it was a video where I showcased all of the bad stuff that I bought. And this was on that list because when I shipped it out, it didn't wobble. I did the wobble test. You always want to do the wobble test when you're selling cast iron pans or any pan really, just to make sure when someone sets it on their stove, it's not going to wobble. We've done the wobble test like I always do, but once the buyer received it, it wobbled. And so I don't know if something happened in transit. But anyway, I accepted the return and got it back. You can see here, look at this. $14 return label. I refunded $100. And, I was just really worried that this thing was not going to sell. And I even sold it at a loss. I took a best offer at $65 free shipping. It took only $10 to ship this time, so it must have been going closer. And my net return on this sale ended up being negative $7.42. And you might be thinking like, well, why are you selling this thing? Well, my net return was like negative $40. So I did claw back some of that money. I still lost money overall in the deal, but I did get some cash back on it. So I was surprised this thing did sell. Finally got it out the door. So coming in at number 5 here is this signed basketball. So this basketball is signed by a guy named Charlie Spoonhour. Not exactly sure how to pronounce his last name, but he was a coach, a basketball coach for here in St. Louis at SLU University or St. Louis University. He was a basketball coach back in the 90s. He passed away not too long ago, but I found this at a garage sale, 6 months ago. I paid $5 $50. It's in really good condition. There's no like certificate of authenticity or anything, but I was like, it's fine, whatever. And listed it, let it sit for 6 months, and it finally sold just this past week. My net return was $30.79 on this, but it's pretty cool is that like I looked at the buyer's name and they have the same last name. So it's probably like a grandson or some family member of Charlie here was able to get a signed basketball of their family member. I thought that was pretty cool to be able to sell this back to the family. It's pretty fun. Coming in at number 4, check out this 1974 vintage Philadelphia Eagles man cave poster. This is like the only good thing that came out of the Super Bowl this past year. I'm a Chiefs fan, and poof, it was not a good game for us. The Eagles just dominated that game. But in the back of my head, that was what was keeping me from, sinking into a deep depression as a Chiefs fan, as I was thinking like, okay, well, at least my Philadelphia Eagles stuff in my inventory is going to sell. This is one of them. This sold for $74.49 back in March. My net return on it was $53.21, only $6.69 to ship. We rolled it and put it in a tube. Interestingly, though, you can check here, like this is just a great example of why ending and relisting works so well, I think. Here, this thing had been listed since April 21st, 2024. I ended it on March 5th, 2025, knowing that the Eagles just won. Let's freshen it up in search there. So it was relisted on March 5th, and then it sold, 6 days later on March 11th. And so I just have so much anecdotal evidence of listings that have been listed for some time that I end and relist it, and they sell within a few days, like it did in this case. That's why we're building automated ending and relisting directly into Flipwise, so that I don't have to remember to do this. It will just do it automatically for me. And so we're beta testing that right now, and it's going to be available on Flipwise soon. Coming in at number 3, these Polo Ralph Lauren wooden coat hangers. Y'all have seen me talk about these quite a bit. One of my favorite garage sale finds of the past year were these coat hangers, where we found like 60 or 70 of them. I paid a total of $6 for all of them and have been selling them like in lots of 10, and finally sold the last one back in March, I think. Back in March. And I just wanted to call this one out so we could see the total net return on the entire purchase ended up being $363.99 for some coat hangers. So really fun thing. I remember this was like late in the day at a garage sale, so a lot of people were overlooking this stuff, and just want to call it out as something to be very aware of coat hangers like this. These are not the first kind of luxury coat hangers I've bought and sold. Keep an eye out for stuff like this. They can be worth a lot of money, and in this case, worth $363.99. Coming in at number 2 is this Toto washlet. This is the thing. This, by the way, if you don't have a washlet on your toilet, this is probably the biggest life-changing thing I've ever purchased. I got my first one probably 12 years ago, and it's the greatest thing on earth. It's my favorite gadget. Can you categorize this as a gadget? I don't know. It's amazing. It's the best thing ever. I don't know what else to say. I'm not going to get into the details of why a Toto washlet is so amazing, but just, if you have the means, consider upgrading your toilet seat to something like this. It is life-changing. Anyway, this thing sold for $334.98. My net return was $210.79. The reason I'm calling this one out in particular, y'all heard me talk about a bulk buy that I did many years ago for a Kohler return pallet. The person that I get these bulk buys from, they don't contact me very often, but when they do, I pick up the phone immediately because they had another pallet for me of not all Kohler. It's a mix of Kohler and Toto and all sorts of other stuff. I did buy this pallet back in March for $1,200 is what I spent on it. And it's just, we can just look and see how it's doing already. So I spent $12. Yeah. And the total payout already is $1,800.57. And I've maybe listed 25% of it. I still have 52 active products listed. I've only sold 18 things from this pallet, and my payout is already $1,800, $600 more than I paid originally. That Kohler pallet, how did that Kohler pallet do? Let me just take a look. Yeah, Kohler pallet, I think, looks like I have 5 things left from that original Kohler pallet. The gross income from that one was $10,000, and my net income from that was $6,700. The total payout was $7,200 for that original Kohler pallet. I think this one's going to do even better if I'm being honest. Let's get back to that other one. Yeah, I think this one's going to do even better just based on what I've sold so far. And so every time I talk about these bulk buys, I always get the question like, how do you find these bulk buys? I don't, I get it. I have a YouTube channel, but this YouTube channel is not how I got that bulk buy, for example. This is somebody that I just like met on Facebook Marketplace, and I went to go buy something and they had a bunch of other stuff. And I was like, oh, I'm a reseller. And so I talked to them about being a reseller. They sold me some bulk stuff then. They had my phone number. I got a reputation with this person of paying cash quickly for stuff. And so they would start to come to me. But usually they wouldn't come to me with stuff like this. It was smaller stuff. And so, but when they would come to me with these big pallets, like again, I just answer the phone very quickly and I'm happy to pay $1,200 for it because I just know it's going to make me probably 10 grand when this thing is all said and done. So it'll be fun to watch how this sells over time. So that leaves us with number one. I put this one in the number one spot because it's one of my best sales in a very long time. This thing sold back in April. These are focal bathies. These are headphones, and they're like audiophile headphones. Very, very nice. I got these from a different bulk buy, so I've got $7.50 in them, and they sold for $531.99. That's $525 plus $6.99 in shipping. The net return was $436.64 for a pair of headphones. They were very nice headphones. I actually took them on my vacation, wore them on the plane. They're very nice. I would not personally pay $525 for these headphones, but I'm glad that there's people that are. They're very nice, but just not my style. I might pay $750 for them, but I'm not going to pay $525 for them. I did sell them to somebody with zero feedback, brand new account, and a lot of sellers see that and get freaked out, but I sell it to zero, feedback and brand new accounts all the time without issue. I don't think that's an indicator that there's a problem. In fact, I might think it's maybe slightly a good indicator that you won't have a problem. But if you see that, if you see a brand new buyer with no feedback, don't automatically assume it's going to be a scam. People have to start somewhere. I have no expectations that this is going to turn into an issue. So don't worry about it if you see that also. All right, now that the lights are out, let's talk. It's good to be back. Good to be back with my weekly videos here. Have you seen lately I've been trying out like some new video ideas? I've been doing... I did a video about complaining and how complaining sort of just hurts your business overall, hurts your life and business overall. I did one about psychological marketing tactics, which is a really fun one to make. I also made one about sort of the habits of quietly successful sellers. There's so many sellers out there in social media that are flashing cash around and all that. So I wanted to create the opposite video of that. I've stopped doing these Monday videos as often. They require filming and editing on the same day. It's just a ton of work to do. I really like doing them, but I noticed myself getting burned out. So I took some time off of doing those. Those other video ideas, I can just work on those for longer periods of time. I don't have to like film them and edit them in one day. I can take weeks to edit them if I want. And I just really like taking my time to sort of craft a good video. So that's what I've been doing lately. And I've got another really big video coming here in a couple of days as well that I've been working on for a long time. I noticed something though, like when you do something creative, like make a video and publish it on YouTube, it sort of acts like a filter, right? It acts like it puts you out. It's scary. You put yourself out there. But when you put yourself out there, to be judged. And it's made me realize that like, even before I had a YouTube channel, there was millions of people in this world who didn't like me. They just didn't know who I was, but they didn't like me. And everyone has, a personality, and you have a personality. And there's some people out there that like you, and there's some people out there that don't like you. And if you don't do anything creative, if you don't put yourself out there, you don't get subjected to people liking you or people not liking you very often. But as soon as you do something creative, you allow yourself to be judged. And that's why a lot of people don't do creative things, is because they don't want to be judged. But just know that there's already people out there that don't like you. So might as well do it. Might as well get your stuff out there. And so doing videos on YouTube is like a filter. It's putting something out there that allows people to either agree or disagree with you. I like making different videos because it further narrows down the filter of people that enjoy my content and enjoy what I'm doing. And so that's kind of the fun of mixing things up a little bit. Anyway, I'm rambling now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.